If we hate lying so much, why do we do it every single day? We hide our pain from our parents so they don't worry. We dodge an argument with our partner using an excuse. Or at work, we sugarcoat the truth so we don't look bad. And even if they seem like small lies, deep down, we know the truth. Each one leaves an invisible crack in trust, and also in our own peace of mind. So why do we do it? Were we born liars? Or is lying something we learned? Is it really tied to our survival? And what are the hidden effects it leaves on our brain and body? Today, you'll discover the answer to these questions. Because what most people don't know is that lying isn't just a moral issue. Your brain pays a price every single time you lie. And what you'll learn here might make you think twice before telling that lie you're about to say, or carrying the ones you're already holding inside. Welcome, neurocurious minds. Did you know lying is much older than that teenager making up an excuse to skip school, or the coworker pretending to be busy to avoid extra tasks? Lies have been with us since the very first human groups. And back then, they weren't a simple whim. They were a matter of survival. Picture a hunter hiding where he found food to make sure the group respected him, or someone exaggerating their skills to secure a place in the tribe. In its beginnings, lying was a tool for protection, status, and convenience. It was how many ensured their place in the world. And today, neuroscience confirms that the traces of that ancient practice still live inside your brain. Because lying isn't just about saying something different from the truth. The moment you lie, your mind switches into multitasking mode. The prefrontal cortex organizes the story. The amygdala detects the inner conflict. And the hippocampus tries to match what you're saying now with what you claimed before. And this doesn't just happen in big deceptions. It happens when you text, "I'm on my way," while you're still at home. Or when you say, "It's fine," while inside you're upset. Or when you smile and say, "Yes, I love the food," even though you didn't. Every time you lie, no matter how small, your brain races against the clock. You have to maintain the story, control your body language, and remember details so you don't contradict yourself later. The curious thing, lying actually takes more energy than simply telling the truth. That's why, even if you think you got away with it, your brain feels the strain. Lying is never free. Every deception burns mental resources, creates stress, and leaves tiny, invisible marks on your inner balance. So, what exactly happens inside your brain when you lie? It's not just about saying different words. Deep inside, a storm of chemicals and electrical signals is unleashed. First, the amygdala kicks in, your brain's alarm system. It senses the mismatch between what you feel and what you say, as if it were whispering, "Something doesn't add up here." That inner tension shows up as discomfort, nervousness, sweating, or even that shaky voice that betrays many. But the amygdala doesn't work alone. Cortisol, the stress hormone, comes into play. Every lie, no matter how small, is treated by your body as a micro threat. It's as if your nervous system says, "We're on risky ground. Stay alert." That's why lying wears you down. It's like carrying a silent alarm inside you every time you do it. Now, here's the most surprising part. Did you know lying can also give you pleasure? Yes, as strange as it sounds, lying doesn't always bring discomfort. Your brain can actually reward you for it. If the lie works, if you escape trouble, avoid an argument, or manage to convince someone, dopamine is released. It's the same feel-good chemical that lights up when you eat your favorite food or get a like on social media. That tiny hit of dopamine creates instant relief and satisfaction. The problem? That relief can become addictive. Every time a lie works, your brain stores it as a useful trick, almost like a survival hack. And before you know it, what started as an occasional escape turns into a repeated pattern, a habit. And here lies the real danger. Every time you manage to get away with a lie, the chances of repeating it grow stronger, feeding a cycle that can be very hard to stop. Now, you might be wondering, Well, if the lie works, is it really that bad? What about those little white lies we all tell from time to time? Do they really do that much harm? Think about this. How many times have you said, "I'm on my way," when you were still getting dressed? Or answered, "Yes, I liked it," about a meal you didn't really enjoy? Or pretended to be excited about a plan just to avoid disappointing someone? On the surface, these seem harmless. But here's the catch. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a small lie and a big one. Every time you lie, you're training your mind to accept the disconnect between what you think and what you say. It's like letting your operating system collect tiny errors that eventually slow down the whole system. And here's the trap. Those little white lies become almost invisible. They normalize. And the more they normalize, the more your brain weakens its capacity for inner coherence. The result? More anxiety, more stress, and that nagging feeling that something's off with me, even if you can't quite put your finger on it. At this point, it's time for an uncomfortable question. How many of your current worries are really the consequence of truths you didn't dare to say? Because what starts as "it's nothing, just a harmless lie," slowly erodes your self-trust. And when that trust breaks, guilt and fear inevitably sneak in. Science backs this up. Neuroscience studies show that repeatedly lying, even in small ways, activates the same brain networks as chronic stress. And constant activation leaves marks, less focus, more emotional tension, and a fragile relationship with yourself. In other words, those tiny lies aren't so tiny. Each one is another brick in the wall separating you from your own peace of mind. And if small lies can wear down your inner coherence, imagine what happens when those same lies creep into your most important relationships. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. No relationship shatters all at once. They fracture slowly, through micro cracks in trust. And every lie, no matter how innocent it seems, is one of those invisible cracks. Think of a common example. You tell your partner you're fine when you're actually upset. You tell a friend, "Yes, I can," when you know you can't. You stay silent with your family because you fear disappointing them. In the moment, lying feels like the easy way out. But the other person's brain doesn't stay fooled forever. Neuroscience has proven that when we discover a lie, the brain activates the same circuits as when we feel physical pain. In other words, betrayal hurts like a real blow. And it doesn't matter if the lie was big or small, the wound in the relationship is already there. So here's the question. Do you really prefer the temporary discomfort of telling the truth or the deep, lasting pain of someone discovering you lied? The big problem is that when the truth eventually comes out, and it almost always does, the other person doesn't just remember the lie itself. They recall the entire context of inconsistency. And in that moment, their brain makes a devastating conclusion. If they lied about this, they could lie about anything. Trust collapses like a house of cards. In relationships, romantic, friendly, or family, this repeated cycle slowly destroys the most precious thing you have, the certainty that you can rely on each other. And without trust, no relationship survives. So the next time you think, "Just one more lie so I don't cause problems," remember, what you believe you're avoiding is just an argument. But what you might really be destroying is the very foundation of your relationship. And it doesn't stop there. Up until now, we've been talking about lying to others. But what about yourself? Are you honest with you? Self-deception is the most destructive lie of all. It's invisible, it's silent, and worst of all, it's addictive. Because while lying to someone else can ruin a relationship, lying to yourself can ruin your entire life. Think about it for a second. How many times have you convinced yourself it's fine, it's nothing, when deep down, it wasn't? How many times have you told yourself, "I can handle it all," when what your body was really begging for was rest? Or said, "I'm over it," while your emotions were still stuck in the same pain? That's self-deception. It's like living with a broken mirror that gives you a distorted image of who you are and what you feel. And the most dangerous part is this. Your brain learns to sustain that lie as if it were the truth. On a neuroscientific level, this creates a constant inner battle. Your prefrontal cortex tries to justify your narrative, but your amygdala detects the conflict and translates it into chronic stress. It's like one part of you pushes forward while another pulls you back. And that tension shows up as anxiety, insomnia, lack of motivation, and that emptiness you can't quite explain. Self-deception doesn't just steal your energy. It steals your chance to transform. Because as long as you keep lying to your mind, your brain will reinforce the same old patterns. And now that you know what happens in your brain when you lie, here comes the most powerful question. How do we break the cycle? Because it's not enough to just say, from today on, I won't lie anymore. Your brain is wired to look for shortcuts, and lying, though it destroys you inside, is still a comfortable shortcut. The first step is to pause before answering. That moment when your mind wants to fabricate an excuse is the perfect chance to choose differently. When you take a breath and give yourself a second, your prefrontal cortex activates and allows you to respond with more awareness instead of falling back into the autopilot of lying. The second step is practicing micro-truths. This doesn't mean confessing everything all at once, but starting small, saying, I don't know, instead of pretending certainty, or admitting, I don't feel like going out, instead of inventing an excuse. Each micro-truth trains your brain to feel safe with honesty. Little by little, truth stops feeling uncomfortable and starts to feel liberating. The third step is reprogramming your self-concept. As long as you believe your worth depends on hiding mistakes or looking perfect, lying will remain your refuge. But when you realize that your authenticity is already enough, your brain rewires the association. Truth stops feeling like a risk and begins to feel like freedom. And here's a question that might linger in your mind. What would happen if starting today you lived with the same honesty you expect from others? At the end of the day, lying doesn't just drain the people around you, it drains you. Every lie consumes mental energy, raises your stress, and plants a seed of self-doubt within you. Truth, on the other hand, even if it stings at first, has a liberating effect. It organizes your mind, lightens your load, and strengthens your relationships. Here's what I want you to take with you. Lying is bread for today, but hunger for tomorrow. It may give you a quick escape, but sooner or later, it charges a price. Truth, however, builds. And every time you choose honesty, you teach your brain that inner peace is worth far more than any excuse. So the next time you feel tempted to lie, ask yourself this: what am I trying to protect? And what am I unknowingly destroying? If you stay aware of this, you'll discover that truth is not a risk. It's a form of freedom. And remember, your brain can reprogram itself. Coherence, trust, and authenticity can be trained. Every choice is an opportunity to rebuild yourself from a stronger, freer, and more human place. Welcome to your new challenge: living with the same honesty you demand from others. And if this video helped you realize something you already suspected, share it. Because knowledge doesn't just inform, it transforms, heals, and sometimes even saves. See you in the next video, Neuro-Curious Minds.